with another episode of How's Your Soul? And today we have Miss Marty, and we're talking all about her chronic illness journey, how she's overcome, how she's pushed through, or maybe lack thereof. So, how are you doing, Marty?
Hey, I'm so excited to be here. It's good to see you,
Yeah.
sis.
Yeah, it's so good to see you. New
Too.
friends.
New friends. I know when we come out of the Instagram DM to real life, right? So
Right,
it's good.
right, for
No,
sure.
how am I? Today I'm feeling hopeful today because it's
Good.
a low symptom day so far. So I'm
Hmm.
feeling hopeful.
Good, good. I love that. I
Yeah.
love that. So tell a little bit about your diagnosis, when you were diagnosed, and your backstory. Let's start there.
Okay, yes. So again, I'm Marty, and I have multiple sclerosis and trigeminal neuralgia. I was diagnosed, I just had my 6-year MS anniversary last month, early August. So technically, I'm still a little bit of a newbie, but on the other side, I feel like more of a vet. So it just depends like on the day and what MS likes to present me with which camp I'm in.
Yeah.
But my diagnosis journey and story, I've talked about it a lot. I feel like it's something that, I know by heart. And I was talking to my sister about um, her lens or, her, side of my diagnosis story. And there were some things that she mentioned that I either blocked out or don't remember or, just didn't even know that that happened. So it's really, it was a great conversation because it's helped tell my story even better.
Hmm.
But I like to just always, and it's just to say that everyone's stories are different, but I hear a lot about people that are living with MS that struggle with symptoms for years of not being believed, of doctors not listening to them, not knowing what's wrong, lots of tests, no answers. And so there's such a psychological um, toll and weight that they kind of carry that a lot of times I've heard that when they found out that they had MS finally, there was a little bit of relief, right?
Yeah.
Because they've, finally had some answers about what it was that was going on with them. And
Hmm.
for me, I was just the complete opposite of that. I had never been sick before. I was 35 when I got diagnosed. I had never been in the hospital. I was, healthy. I was very active, and there were no symptoms, of note. I can look back and say that, okay, I can see where maybe things were kind of percolating, within my body, but it wasn't
Hmm.
enough that made me pause or feel like I needed to go to the doctor. If anything, I just thought that I was just running around too much. And, maybe that's why I felt some tingling or why I had a lot of fatigue. I just thought it was because of just my day to day and just overdoing it like I still do. But I was on vacation with my family in Martha's Vineyard, which, for those of you that don't know, it's a small island um, off of the coast of Massachusetts. So it's a little remote. And so
Hmm.
I was on vacation there, had just finished exercising, and was getting ready to shower and felt a sharp pain on the left side of my body and then went paralyzed. And
Wow.
so it was really traumatic. I thought I was dying. I didn't know, was this a heart attack because I felt pain on my, left side? Did I
Right.
have a stroke because I had paralysis? We're on this, again, tiny island with, the hospital there is more of an urgent care. They don't
Hmm.
have MRI machines and, anything to do in terms of, real trauma kind of cases. And so that added
Hmm.
a lot of anxiety and fear that whatever was happening with me, I wouldn't be able to fix. And so
Yeah.
I got medvaced off of the island to Boston. Um, and it was there. after an MRI that the nurses came and told me that my scans, I had over 20 lesions throughout my spine and brain,
Wow.
and that it was consistent with multiple sclerosis.
Mm.
Um, so it was just, again, that the shock, the not having just any type of warning or heads up sent me into deep denial, deep grief, because again, this just wasn't something that I had never really heard of MS. No one in my family had it. Um, and I always say that I always use this example. You know, when you see like a toddler that falls and they look
Yep.
around to the adults to see like should they cry or not?
Yep.
You know, like if they hurt themselves, it's like they're kind of gauging like, okay, was that bad? Or and the parents like, you're okay, it's okay. Just like
Right,
not
right.
get them to the delayed screaming. Um,
Mm-hmm.
that's how I felt when I was told I had multiple sclerosis. I didn't really know what it was, and
Yeah.
the nurse and the physician's assistant looked at me with such pity and with such sorrow, and the way that they delivered the news was in such a morbid and just heartbreaking way. One had tears in her eyes, that it kind of gave me my reaction,
Yeah.
because I didn't even know what they were saying, but based off of these medical professionals delivering this news in this way, it sent me even into more of panic,
Yeah.
and anxiety, because I was like, well, shit, you're looking at me like this, am I dying? I just didn't even know what was happening. So it was an
Yeah.
interesting, it was a different type of entry into the world of multiple sclerosis.
Uh-huh. Mm-hmm. Talk a little bit about your secondary diagnosis, because I've never heard of this one.
Oh, well, I'm glad you haven't. I hope and pray for anyone that has not heard of it, they never hear about it again, and don't have to ever experience it. Trigeminal neuralgia is, it's called the suicide disease because the
Wow.
pain levels are so high, that you have a desire to hurt yourself to stop the pain. And
Wow.
it's a shooting, stabbing kind of face pain that usually hits your kind of like jawline, your forehead, and like the base of your neck. Depending,
Okay.
those three zones are usually where it presents itself. And what it is there's um, pressure on a nerve, on your trigeminal neuralgia nerve, that is causing that pain.
Mm-hmm.
And I had MS for about a year, and was again on vacation. I'm always, well, that's a good thing. I'm always on vacation. I was with friends on another trip, and I woke up screaming because I felt like someone was kind of stabbing me from the inside,
Mm-hmm.
through my jaw and my ear.
Mm.
Um, the pain was the pain was so awful that I blacked out from the pain. I, was screaming, I was hitting, I was, I don't really remember it, but I wound up blacking out from the pain. My body, just my mind could not handle it anymore.
Yeah.
And it was a result of a particular lesion that was sitting on this blood vessel, pressing on the trigeminal nerve. And
Wow.
so it was brought on by my MS.
Mm.
And it resulted in me needing to have brain surgery in 2020, right before
Okay.
COVID, to relieve that pressure. When you have severe trigeminal neuralgia, the only possible solution is a microvascular decompression surgery, which is a brain surgery where they go in, um, they shave about a quarter of your hair off, and they go into your skull and insert kind of like a little pad to create space between that blood vessel and the nerve to relieve the pressure. But
Okay.
it only takes your pain, down from, let's say, a 12. For me now, my daily pain in my face is between a 4 and a 6.
Yeah.
And so it's something that is constant.
Hmm.
But you can at least, it's crazy how what you can manage through,
Yeah.
like to be at a constant level of pain state that you're
Yes.
like, oh, this is not a bad day. It's a 4. It's like,
Yes.
that's not normal. It should be 0.
Right.
Right.
Yeah. 100%.
So
Um,
that's trigeminal neuralgia.
okay. Got you. Yeah, I've never heard of that one before. And I saw that you had brain
Yeah.
surgery, and I was curious. I was like, I wonder what brought on the brain surgery. That's the answer. So
Yeah. Right. There it
the
is. Who would
we
have thought?
have, I know, right? So we have similar stories on how we came to be diagnosed. We have different diagnoses, but I was similar where
Right.
I didn't have any prior issues, any red flags or anything like that. My diagnosis was kind of
Mm.
blindsided me. Um, I was completely healthy. I used to be a professional dancer, full-time athlete. I had just gotten a physical
Wow.
earlier that year. Everything came back perfectly fine. I was plant-based vegan. Like I was like peak health. And my birthday was in
Wow. Yeah.
August. By October, I had lost 40 pounds of muscle mass. No explanation.
Hmm.
And I couldn't walk up a flight of steps. And my primary did another round of labs and was like, you have some markers for autoimmune disease. So I'm going to refer you to a rheumatologist. And I got very
Okay.
lucky that my rheumatologist studied in scleroderma, which is very rare. A lot of rheumatologists don't even know what scleroderma is. And that's scary in itself. Like, you're supposed to
Mm.
know these autoimmune diseases,
Yeah.
right? But
Right. Right.
she was able to quickly diagnose me and put me on a treatment plan, and the treatment plan was aggressive. But it was kind of that same thing of like, I've never heard of this. I don't know how to react to this. She
Right.
kind of had the same similar like pity in her eyes, but tried to have a good bedside manner at the same time. But they
Mm-hmm.
gotta give you
Mm-hmm.
best case scenario, worst case scenario. And the one thing that stuck in my head was, you may only have 11 more years to live. And at the time I was 27.
Wow. And
And I was
how old
like,
were you?
I was
27.
27 at the time. Yeah. And I was like, what do you mean 11 more years?
Right. Right.
Uh, and I didn't know of anybody that had scleroderma. So I just took to the social media community. It's like, let me find people, let me find community, because I didn't know how to wrap my head around it. Because Google can be a
Yeah.
scary place, and
It can be a
not
very scary place.
and not always accurate. So my question to you
Mm-hmm.
is, how did all of it take a toll on you mentally? What did you do for your own mental self-care?
Yeah. I mean, well, I was really fortunate that was already in therapy
Okay.
um, before I got diagnosed. I had decided that April, which about 6 months before my first MS episode, to get back into therapy. I believe in therapy. I have therapists in my family, so I'm a huge, component of it. It's not something that I had been in always, kind of more when needed. And
Mm-hmm.
I had lost a dear friend pretty tragically and didn't feel like I was dealing with that grief well. And so I had decided to get into therapy for that just 6 months before my MS episode, which was just nothing but the Lord, because I had already had a relationship and a rapport and, just a game plan,
Yeah.
already with my
Yeah.
therapist. So that really was super helpful because I already had an appointment lined up.
Mm-hmm.
When I had gotten sick, I was already seeing her on Tuesday at 2.
Yeah.
So it was able to kind of be a safe space to let it all out. And so I'm a huge, huge supporter of therapy. I feel like all of us, I mean, I think we all need therapy, but if you're living with a chronic
Yes.
illness, I think that's non-negotiable. It's needed.
Yes.
And so that really helped. I was in denial. I probably didn't start treatment for about 6 months because I was in such denial.
Okay.
I just was like, I'm still walking. It's fine. Like maybe that was just like a bad episode, a bad episode. This is just crazy. Like I can't have
Mm-hmm.
this, I
Mm-hmm.
just can't have this. And so I started to get more sick. I think that first MS episode kind of unleashed all of the symptoms that had just, like I said, been kind of percolating in my body. And I lost a lot of weight. I was having a lot of, different just MS symptoms. And my
Mm-hmm.
neurologist actually gave me an ultimatum and had said that if I didn't begin a treatment, I would no longer be in her care.
Mm-hmm.
And that's what made me kind of be like, okay, I've got to face this.
Yeah.
So for me, mental health wise, it was a lot of denial and fear,
Mm-hmm.
that first 6 months. But through therapy, just like you, through this amazing social media community, I always say, like, to be diagnosed with a chronic illness in this generation, in this time, is one of the blessings, one of the silver linings, because there's such a community here and such a resource, to be able
Yeah.
to ask a question about a medicine or a drug or a side effect or a symptom and not have to wait, 4 days for the nurse to get back to you in your portal, and
Mm-hmm.
and be able to have a whole list of people that are like, oh no, that happens all the time, or don't take that drug, request that, or this really
Mm-hmm.
worked for me. And it's just been, I think that this is such an isolating experience, living with an incurable disease, that the internet community, hands down, has gotten me through some really, really dark times.
Yeah, for sure. For sure. I can completely attest to that 100%. So
Mhm. Yeah.
what did and what does your treatment plan look like? Has it evolved over the
Yeah.
years? What did it look like when you started? What does it look like now?
Okay. Yeah. I mean, I, I'm in a very reflective state, because, again, my MS anniversary just passed. So I always take that time to look at where I was, look at where I am, whether that's the good and the bad, right? And
Mm-hmm.
I can, it's so funny because when I first got diagnosed, again, having never really been sick, I really um, took doctor's word for it. Whatever a doctor told me, I thought was just what the answer was,
Yeah.
and, you go to the doctor, they fix you, they know, don't question a doctor, don't, if you don't like them, that's your problem. Just
Right.
all, I didn't have a voice, it was like, which is so crazy, right? Because any other service that we pay for, right?
Mm-hmm.
Like if we're at a restaurant, if we're, if we don't like it, we're quick to ask for a new server. We're quick to send it back. We'll have the hairdresser recurl our hair, whatever it is, we have no
Yeah.
problem. But the one industry where we're spending thousands of dollars, okay,
Yeah.
thousands
Yeah.
of dollars, it's like, oh yeah, sure, okay, yes, no, I can't do that. Or,
Mm-hmm.
it's like, what, how, I don't get how we all turned out to be that way, that doctors are these gods, and
Yeah.
they can't be questioned.
Yeah.
But yeah, that was that's how I was initially, and I didn't really have a voice. And my trigeminal neuralgia diagnosis, the particular neurologist that I had at the time misprescribed me, um dosage wise, on a very dangerous drug. And
Okay.
and the cocktail of all of the other drugs that I was taking, um had I overdosed.
Oh wow.
And it was but God, that my Apple Watch picked up that I wasn't breathing. I stopped breathing in my sleep, and
Mm,
it called 911.
mm,
And I wound up waking up. So when by the time the ambulance arrived, I was alert, but I was just like very out of it, just couldn't, really understand what was happening. And so I wound up going to the emergency room and having to get my stomach pumped. And I mean, I OD'd.
yeah.
And so it's just, that's what had me wake up and realize, outside of the betrayal and the hurt that I felt from that doctor, that I had
Mm,
to participate. I had to be an active participate participant in my health. I couldn't
yes.
just take the script and not ask questions, not look up drug interactions on my own.
Mm-hmm.
And ask around, ask people if they've taken this, and just I found my voice through that experience. And
Yeah.
so now I'm bringing journals and articles and talking to my doctor, like, this drug didn't work, this is what I found, can we try this?
Mm-hmm.
So I'm very much a partner,
Yes.
in my health care plan now,
Mm-hmm.
which I hate to say it because we're carrying so much, and that's even more work, for us to have to do.
Right.
Uh, but it's necessary. It's a
100%.
must. And so I'm on a DMT called Ocrevus, which is an infusion drug that I take twice a year. I have a big bag of pills of different medicines for daily symptoms.
Yeah.
And then I do a lot of holistic things as well. I do cryotherapy,
Okay.
swimming, um, infrared lights, so I
Yes.
do compression boots. I try to
Mm-hmm.
mix it up. Hmm.
Yeah. Yeah. I love that. So I actually want to dig into this holistic side because I'm big on the holistic side too. Like with my
Okay.
autoimmune diseases, I'm like, let's tackle this from all angles. Like, give me solutions or like
All
let
angles.
me
Exactly. All
all
sides.
angles, all sides. Like I
Yeah.
have you changed
Hmm.
your diet, the way you eat, your eating habits at all? What else do you do from the
Hmm.
holistic
Yes.
perspective? Let's talk about it.
Yeah. Yeah. Let's get into that. Okay. I love that. So, yes. And I think a lot of this stuff I think we all should be doing, like chronic illness or not. I think that just to be healthier and live longer, and the quality of your life, while here, I think these are tips that everyone should be doing. But I
Mhm.
really shifted to the Mediterranean diet. That's something which is essentially a lot of, fish, lean
Mhm.
meats, vegetables, fruits. I stay away from nightshade
Mhm.
vegetables and fruits. So that's like tomatoes, eggplants, things that
Yes.
are super acidic,
Yes.
because that, again, you're trying to, when you talk to people that have autoimmune diseases, we're inflamed, right?
Yes.
Everything inside is inflamed. And so you're trying to bring that inflammation down. And so it's looking for anti inflammatory foods, anti inflammatory activities. So again, that's like cryo, kind of resetting, what's happening. I do HIIT workouts, spin,
Okay.
things that are really kind of aggressive. I don't do them to the level that, a healthy person, can. I'm not able
Mhm.
to, but so it's very modified. But that for me is something, if you're living with MS, it can help. It's shown to help in repairing the myelin sheath, which is,
Okay.
when you have MS, that's what it's kind of this protective coil around your nerve. And that's
Mhm.
what has been damaged from these lesions. And there is no medicine yet to repair that.
Okay.
But exercise um, is something that does. And it's cardio, strength training, so that my mobility, can continue. Acupuncture
Mhm.
um, really helps. So I'm always looking for a lot of supplements, vitamin D,
Mhm.
B12, magnesium. helps so much with like my migraines and also heart health. So it's,
Yes.
for as many prescription drugs, then there's all the vitamins, right?
100%. 100%. And a lot of people don't realize that a lot of the prescription drugs deplete you of your vitamins. So you need to have those vitamins
Right.
to
Exactly.
supplement what you're being depleted of.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And a lot of
Yep.
doctors, well, like I said,
Exactly.
I don't know how many doctors, but there are doctors out there that don't do their due diligence in telling you the cause and effects of what they're
Yeah.
prescribing or what they're telling you. They expect you to
Mm-hmm.
just know.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm like, no, 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 let's ask
Right.
the
Right.
question. So I'm going to drill you like a drill
Ask the
sergeant.
questions.
This is my
We're gonna
life
talk
we're
about it.
talking
Yeah.
about. Yeah, this is my life we're talking about.
Mm-hmm.
And
Mm-hmm.
like
Yeah.
as much as you are like, what's the word? Um, traditionally trained through book and practice, I'm living with it.
Mm-hmm.
So like
Right.
like
Right.
you know
Yes.
what I mean? Like, through book and
Yeah. Yeah.
practice, but I know through what I'm dealing with on a daily basis. And your five
Yep.
seconds that it takes you to write a script has lasting effects on my body. So just as you were
Correct. Wow.
saying,
Yeah. Yeah.
being the ultimate advocate for yourself is so
Mm-hmm.
huge,
Mm-hmm.
especially as Black women, which is a whole nother
Come
conversation,
on.
but
That's a
we
whole
can
nother
go.
episode.
The amount of gaslighting that comes in the medical field,
Yeah.
being Black women,
Yeah.
or just being Black people, but
Mm-hmm.
specifically Black women, just not being believed on the
Right.
pain
Right.
tolerance scale and all the different things. Like,
Right. Mm-hmm.
have you ever, which I'm sure you
Yeah.
have, but have you ever experienced medical gaslighting? And if so, how did you deal with it?
Oh wow. Yeah. I mean, like you said, it happens more often than I care to admit. In terms of medical gaslighting, I think that especially when for those that are living with a lot of days, my illness is invisible.
Yes.
So it's very hard to have someone believe you, when you're saying you're in this amount of pain, but you look the way that I look, right?
Mm-hmm.
So it's you're battling that, as well, of just the
Yes.
mental of like, well, the pain can't be that bad because
Yes.
you're here talking to me, your eyes are clear, whatever assessment that they're trying to do, and so
Right.
you're battling that as well.
Yes.
um and so that I think that's like the beginning of the gaslighting that I've experienced, is that I don't look sick a lot of the
Yep.
time. um and it's something that there's a lot of for me, there's a lot of shame in it, because I feel like I shouldn't be complaining. I shouldn't be saying that I'm, feeling this way, because this person over here looks more visibly sick, or, and so I'm kind of gaslighting myself too. That
Mm-hmm.
I've seen that kind of happen. And so it's a mind fuck. I don't know if
Yeah.
we curse on this podcast.
Oh
Sorry.
yeah, we do.
But
We
it's,
do.
it's really, yeah, it's like, it really messes with your head, and um as you were saying, or as we were saying, you have to push through all of that and speak up. And it's like, if you're not going to help me, I will find someone else. It's so funny. I was this is years ago. I was in the airport, and Naomi Campbell was boarding, or trying to board. The doors had already closed
Mhm.
to her plane, and she was like not having it. And so she was just like, okay, I already know that this particular gate agent is not the person I need to talk to. She was like, it's not you. Who can help me? Like, she's like,
Mhm.
the plane's still there. Find who can actually help me. I know it's not you. Like, you're not going to be the one to like open these doors. So I'm not going to even waste my time or your time. find who can
Right.
help me. And she
Right.
certainly was being a bit of a diva, but she, the doors open, she was able to get in. And I'm sure part of that was because she was Naomi Campbell, but it stuck with me in the sense of who can help me. And I take that into a lot of my doctor's appointments. I'm like, I'm not going to
Yes.
waste my spoons or my energy trying to convince you to be my doctor.
Yes.
So if
Yes.
you're not going to, put it in the note that you said no and find me who can. And
Yes.
it's very clear. Like, I'm going to have that MRI. You're going to give me a week of that particular drug that I want to try, that I heard, can help my symptoms and that I read about and that I researched. You're going to give it to me. Like that it's it wasn't a question.
Yeah.
So it's really, I've gotten very loud and very aggressive when it comes to my care. And with medical gaslighting, I have no tolerance for it. And I don't want any of us to. So I can
Yeah.
be the angry Black woman. I don't care. You're still going to write the script or you're
100%.
not. And we're going to, we're going to go somewhere else because,
Yeah.
again, I'm paying you to take care of me.
Thousands.
So
Like
take care of
tens.
me, or then we're not. You're fired.
Yeah.
You're fired. That's
Yeah.
what it's not. Oh, I found a new doctor. No, I fired
No,
you. That's what
fired you.
happened.
Yeah. Yeah. And we need to
You know?
act accordingly. We need to act accordingly because one thing I
Yeah.
love, I forgot who said it. I think it was Brittany that said it when we were in San Francisco. You have to treat your health like a business. You really do. Like,
Yes. Yeah.
you have to be able to be the boss of your own health. And everybody here is just to help you along the way. But you're the one that's living with it. You're the
Right.
one that is experiencing all the symptoms and all the things, like you have to be an advocate. And I know it is exhausting. And now I'm speaking to those that I talk to on a daily in the chronic illness community who are just so depleted that they feel like they don't have it in them to fight a little bit extra, to speak up, to do the things.
I
Like,
get that. I get that.
nothing's going to change until you speak up for yourself, and I know it's exhausting because
But
you're
I do
already
want, I think it's good you
exhausted.
brought that up to honor how
Yeah.
tired we are. Yeah. I
We
want to
are
honor that too. Yeah.
exhausted.
It's real.
We are exhausted, and it's not easy, but the work must be done if we want better for our own lives. That's the way I see it. I truly do believe
Our lives are at stake.
Yeah. Literally. Literally, that's not a figure of speech. you know?
Yeah.
Um,
Right.
something else I want to touch on is accessibility and accountability to public spaces to accommodate and see us and make space for us. I know you recently spoke up about Disney and their recent changes. Can you talk about that and how it
Yes.
affects people specifically with invisible illnesses?
Yeah. No, I mean, the lack of accessibility in America and just the disregard, for people that are living with disabilities. It's so wild to me. The ableism that is just so prevalent, in this country.
Yeah.
I talk with my apartment management all the time about like the lack of accessibility and the lack of thoughtfulness, the choice to, you technically are within the rules of ADA. There's enough handicap spaces, but you've placed them in such awful places and sporadic places that it's not helpful, but you prioritized electric car vehicle charging ports.
Right.
Those are front and center, and right, that amenity is there for everyone with their electric car, and this is what you're advertising, but your handicap spaces are few and far between. It's like you made a choice, like because there's 5 ECV charging ports right in the front and only one handicap space. you know, so it's just like the lack of thought of just feeling like this afterthought, feeling like this second class citizen, especially when you're a person of color
Mm-hmm.
and then a woman. You know, we've been oppressed in so many ways, and so then adding
Yeah.
in being disabled, you just really feel like less of a human being, you know, a
100%.
lot of times. And so it's really hard, and it's something that really, for me, it's really hurt my feelings. You know, it's weird. It's like I haven't really gotten to the anger feeling yet. I'm just so hurt. You know,
Mm-hmm.
it brings me to tears. You know, I've been talking with Disney management, Disney execs for the past month or so about the new disability access service that is excluding anyone with physical mobility disabilities. It's only honoring accessibility for folks that are living with autism.
Okay.
And, you know, as I completely support assistance and access for folks living with autism or anywhere on the, you know, neurodivergent, you know, scale, can't understand why someone with physical disabilities or invisible illnesses would be excluded. So
Yeah.
with Parkinson's, POTS,
Mm-hmm.
MS, that we would not need accommodations as well is just really, it just does not make any sense to
Right.
me
Right.
that Disney would do something like that. And you know, I think there's some politics. I know there's some lawsuits going on, and you know, we're gonna see how this all, you know, shakes out. But it's something that I continue to speak on and continue to again speak with Disney corporate about, and just trying to advocate. But it breaks my heart that we have to, again, you know, to your point, said we're so tired anyway, and it's just like I now have to fight for this.
Yeah.
And I get why, you know, people just stay home. You know,
Yeah.
I get why it's just like, well, I'm just not going to go to that thing or to that place because I don't want to do all that. It's exhausting. It's humiliating.
Mm-hmm.
Um, you just feel like, again, such a lesser of a person.
Mm-hmm.
Um, it's why again, it just adds to the isolation that we're always feeling,
Yeah.
you
Yeah,
know?
for sure. For sure. Like I'm just now getting to a point, and I'm what, 5 years into my diagnosis. I'm just now getting to a point where I'm like, no, go out, go to the restaurant,
Mm,
do the thing,
mm-hmm.
because at first
Yeah.
it was I don't want to be seen as less than. I don't want to be seen as a burden. I don't want to be seen. I don't want you.
Yeah.
At first, it was, I don't want people to have to go out of their way to accommodate me. I just want to be treated like everybody else is treated. I don't want to have to feel
Yeah.
like the
Yeah.
special case, you know? And
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
now
Mm-hmm.
it's like, now that I'm going out, I'm like, I can't go there. They don't have accommodations for me. I still can't walk up a flight of steps. So if a
Wow.
place doesn't
Wow.
have, it's not that I necessarily have to be in my wheelchair, but I can't do steps. So if you don't have a ramp or if it's not flush access, I can't get in. There's a lot of, I used to
Mm-hmm.
love going to
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
concerts. I used to love going to all these different things, and a lot of places I can't physically get into anymore. So I find myself at
Yeah.
home. It's just like we
Yeah.
want to live normal lives too. So I want to wrap this up
And we
with
deserve it. It's our right,
yes,
you know?
yes,
Mm-hmm.
yes, 100%. So I want to wrap this up with this final question of, if to someone who's newly diagnosed out there, um,
Mm-hmm.
what is
Mm-hmm.
one thing that you would want them to know? And to everybody that isn't dealing with a chronic illness or a disability or an invisible illness of any kind, what is something you want them to understand about the way we live?
Sure. For folks, for anyone that's newly diagnosed, just to know that you haven't lost all control. You know, you still do have a say in what your life is going to look like, and
Mm-hmm.
how you can still find fulfillment. I think that the hopelessness that I felt when first diagnosed, that everything was out of my control and this disease was just going to just take over every aspect of my life, is what had me in such a dark space.
Mm-hmm.
But seeing now that it is different, it is heavy. You know, I'm not necessarily going to say like everything will be okay, because that's not true.
Mm-hmm.
But you know, you will still be able to have a say in what your life looks like. You know,
Yeah.
and just kind of hold some comfort in that.
Mm-hmm.
Um, for those that are not dealing with a chronic illness and are a loved one or just listening to learn more, I think that it's just lead with grace and kindness, because you just don't know. We don't know what anyone's going through. You have no idea
Yeah.
what someone is going through. And so don't be the person that then sends them over the edge. You know,
Mm-hmm.
just show grace. You just,
Yeah.
because at the end of the day, it's like whatever someone does to you or did to you, if you're driving, if you're in the grocery store, if it's in a work meeting, whatever, it's not that big of a deal.
Mm-hmm.
It really isn't. Whatever
Mm-hmm.
grievance it is, it's just not that deep. So just let it go. Give them a
Yeah.
pass and just be like, I'm going to hope that that wasn't really them. I hope that wasn't, who they are as a person. But if it turns out that they are this shitty person, God will deal with that. You know what I mean? It's not for you to deal with. Like,
Right.
you don't have to be the judge and jury. You don't have to teach someone a lesson. You don't, just, and you'll be less stressed too if you just let it go. And whatever they're
100%.
got going on, it'll get figured out on their side of things. So
Mm-hmm.
I would just say to lead with grace and kindness if you can.
Yeah. 100%. I love that. Well, thank you so
Yeah.
much for joining me. Thank you for sharing your
Thank you. This was so,
story.
I thought we could have kept going. This was so
I
much
know, right?
fun.
I know, right? I try to keep them a little concise because I can just talk forever.
Yeah, this was great. This was
But
awesome.
last question before we end out. How's your soul doing?
Okay. Wow. You know, I'm having a rough time. It's a rough season.
Mhm.
I'm really leaning a lot on my faith. I'm staying in prayer. I have some new symptoms that have some scary next steps on.
Mhm.
So I am just trying to stay in prayer and know that this too shall pass. But my heart's heavy right now.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, I will
Yeah.
keep you uplifted. I ask that everybody that's
Please do.
listening keeps you uplifted. And we're in this together. From one chronic illness
We
warrior
are.
to
We really
another.
are.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, thank you.
Yes.
Thank you so
Thanks,
much.
sis.
Yes, it's been fun.
Yes.
Until
Can't wait
next
to
time.
hear it. I can't wait to listen.